The alien slave market was full of noise and pain. Creatures from many worlds were locked in cages. Some cried, some shouted, and some sat in silence, their eyes empty. The air was hot, full of smoke, and the smell of fear. In the far corner inside a small rusted cage sat a young alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, her hair tangled and dirty. She wore only a torn cloth, and her thin body shivered in the cold. She looked no older than 16 in human years. No name, no family, no voice, only a number burned into her wrist. Buyers walked past her cage, looking at her like an object. Some laughed, some made cruel jokes. The sellers shouted, "Fresh one here, soft and quiet, perfect for work or play," but no one bought her. Not yet, she thought. Maybe it was better that way. One day something changed. The crowd moved aside as a tall human man entered the market. He was older than most, gray in his beard, strong shoulders, tired eyes. He wore a dark coat, boots dusty from travel, and a scar ran across his cheek. His name was Marcus, but she didn't know that yet. He walked slowly, not like other buyers. He didn't laugh, didn't shout, didn't smile. He passed by cages without even turning his head until he reached hers. She looked up, her heart tight with fear. Maybe he was worse than the others. He stared at her, but not like the others did. Not at her body, not like a man buying a toy. He looked at her face, her eyes, her shaking hands. The seller appeared and grinned. "A quiet one, huh?" he said. "Never been touched, still fresh, a bit small. But she'll break nicely." Marcus didn't reply. He looked at the girl again. She pressed herself to the back of the cage. "Ready to be hit or taken, I'll take her," Marcus said quietly. His voice was calm, not cruel. The seller handed over the keys. Laughing, "She's yours, old man, but don't blame me if she cries too much." Marcus opened the cage, but didn't pull her out. He just stood back and said, "You can walk." The girl didn't move at first. She waited, shaking, thinking it was a trick. When she didn't move, Marcus stepped closer, but slowly, gently. He took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders. Then he offered his hand. Not to grab, but to help. She stared at his hand. Confused, it was warm, strong but not painful. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she took it. He led her out of the cage, out of the market, into the open air. She expected chains, a collar, a slap, anything. But there was only silence. He helped her into his small ship. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean inside. He gave her a seat, a blanket, and a bottle of water. She sat, holding the blanket like it was a shield, still thinking. Maybe he's waiting until we're in space. He didn't speak. He just started the engine and looked ahead. She watched him, eyes wide, heart racing. Every second she waited for pain, for commands, for him to show his true face. But he just flew the ship. Time passed. She looked at him again. Why didn't he chain her? Why no threats, no orders? She was cold, so she wrapped the blanket tighter. He noticed and turned up the ship's heat. Still silent, still calm, when he placed a protein bar beside her. She didn't eat, she thought. What if it's poisoned? She was used to tricks, to pain. Marcus said nothing. He just sat on the floor to sleep, giving her the seat. Before closing his eyes, he said softly, "I won't hurt you." She didn't believe him. She couldn't, but why was her cage gone? Why was her back not burning from a whip? She didn't sleep. She watched him all night, holding the blanket, waiting, fearing, confused. The stars moved outside the window, and for the first time in years, she didn't cry. She didn't understand why, but her hands stopped shaking. Just a little. She still didn't trust him. But maybe, just maybe, this human was not like the others. She expected pain, but felt warmth. The ship door closed with a soft hiss. The girl sat frozen in her seat, too afraid to breathe. The human man, Marcus, didn't look at her. He pressed a few buttons on the screen, and the ship lifted into the dark sky. She pulled the blanket around her thin shoulders, still thinking it might be a trick. No one had ever given her anything soft before. Blankets were for owners, not for slaves. Marcus didn't speak. He didn't look at her like other men had. His face was calm, eyes focused on flying the ship. No anger, no hunger, just silence. The girl stared at him, heart beating fast. She remembered the last man who bought her. He smiled sweetly, too, until the door closed. Then came the ropes. The pain, the screaming. She looked at Marcus again. Was he pretending to be kind now so he could be cruel later? She didn't trust him, couldn't trust him, but still, something about his silence was different. On a small table beside her, Marcus placed a bottle of water and a protein bar. She didn't touch them, she just stared in her world. Food came with orders, eat when told or starve. He looked over at her once, then looked away. You don't have to eat, he said softly. It's there if you want. His voice was quiet. Calm, not like a master. He leaned back in his chair, sighing like a tired man, not a monster. Not a buyer, just a man. The girl didn't reply. She wrapped the blanket tighter. Feeling small and unsure, the stars outside moved slowly. The engine hummed gently, it almost felt peaceful. Almost. Marcus stood up and walked to a small room at the back of the ship. He returned with a soft pillow and placed it on the floor. Then he sat down there, leaning against the wall. You can have the seat, he said. I'll sleep down here. She blinked in confusion. No chains, no shouts, no punishment, just space and a floor. And silence. He lay down, closed his eyes, and said nothing more. Minutes passed, then an hour. The girl didn't move. She waited, heart ready to run. Was he pretending to sleep? Would he grab her if she stood up? Would he lock the door like the others did? She didn't know. She didn't understand this strange human. Slowly, she reached for the protein bar. Her hands shook as she opened it. She took a small bite. It was dry but not poisoned. She ate more, then drank the water. Watching Marcus the whole time, he didn't move, he just slept. His breathing was slow and deep, like someone who was tired of the world. The girl looked around the ship. She saw a control panel, a few buttons, a light blinking red near the door. She stood up quietly and walked toward it. Maybe she could escape, maybe she could fly the ship. But then she saw something strange. On the seat where Marcus had been sitting, there was a small folded paper. She picked it up, hands trembling. It had writing on it in simple letters. It said, "You're not my prisoner. You're free, you can leave if you want. The door code is 2489. No one will stop you." She stared at the paper. Not believing it, no one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever given her a choice. She looked at Marcus, still sleeping on the cold floor. No weapon near him, no control collar. She held the note close to her chest, heart racing. She walked to the ship door and typed in the code. 2. Or 8. The panel blinked green, and the door clicked open slightly. Cool night air flowed in. Freedom, real, terrifying freedom. She looked back at Marcus, still sleeping, arms crossed. He didn't move, didn't try to stop her. She stepped out into the night. She saw trees, stars, and silence. She could run now, hide, start a new life. But she didn't move, her feet stayed on the step. She looked at the blanket around her shoulders. The food in her stomach, the soft note in her hand. He could have hurt her, but didn't. He could have lied, but gave her the code. He could have been a monster, but slept on the floor. She stepped back inside and closed the door. She sat down again, this time beside the sleeping man. Not as a slave, but not yet as a friend either, just someone who was confused, she whispered softly. Why? Are you kind? Marcus didn't answer, but in that moment, for the first time, she felt like maybe not everyone wanted to hurt her. The morning came slowly, soft light touching the walls of the small ship. The alien girl woke up before the sun rose. Her eyes opened to silence. Marcus was still sleeping on the floor, his arm over his eyes. He looked peaceful, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. The girl looked at the paper again. She had read it all night. Over and over. You're free, you can leave. No one will stop you. Her hands still shook when she touched the words. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever given her a choice. She stood up quietly, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. The ship door was still there, glowing faintly, waiting. The code 2489 was already entered from last night. She could open it and run away forever, but her legs didn't move. Something in her chest pulled her back. She turned and looked at Marcus again. He didn't even have a weapon near him. He trusted her, and that made her heart feel strange. A strange warmth she didn't understand. She thought, why didn't he chain me? Why did he let me go? No one ever did that, not in her world. Slowly, she walked closer to him. He looked older in the light, tired eyes, a small scar near his mouth. She wondered what kind of life he lived, why he would buy a slave just to free her. The sound of his breathing was steady. She reached out, hesitated, then softly touched the blanket he had given her. It was warm now from her own body heat. She smiled a little, just a small curve of lips she didn't notice. Then Marcus woke. He opened his eyes and looked at her quietly. No surprise, no fear, only calm. You're still here, he said, voice rough with sleep. The girl stepped back quickly. Holding the paper, she didn't know what to say. She just nodded once. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and smiled faintly. Did you sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Marcus sighed and stood up, stretching his arms. Fair enough, he said softly. Takes time. She stared at him, confused. Takes time. For what? She whispered. To feel safe, he said, looking out the window. After you've been hurt too long, peace feels dangerous. His words made her heart ache. She didn't even know why. Marcus walked to the control panel and pressed a few buttons. The ship hummed to life again. We'll reach a safe zone in a few hours, he said. You can decide what to do after that. She looked down. Why? She asked. Why are you helping me? Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked out at the stars. Finally, he said quietly, because once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it. He didn't explain more. He just sat back in his chair, eyes far away. The girl wanted to ask what he meant, but something told her not to. She looked at the paper again and whispered, You could have sold me again. Made money. Marcus turned his head and said simply, I'm not that kind of man. The words hit her like soft lightning. Simple, quiet, but powerful. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Respect. Maybe even hope. The ship entered the atmosphere of a green-blue planet. Soft clouds passed by the window. It was beautiful. The girl had forgotten what beauty looked like. Marcus landed near a quiet field, full of golden grass and bright sunlight. He turned off the engine and stood up. He opened the door and fresh air rushed in. The smell of trees and flowers filled the cabin. The girl stepped outside slowly, blinking in the light. The sun touched her skin gently. She looked up, eyes wide. The sky wasn't dark, it was open and full of light. She whispered softly, It's beautiful. Marcus smiled. It's safe here, no slavers. No hunters, he said. You can stay or go. No one will follow you. He turned around and began walking toward a small town in the distance. The girl stood frozen. He wasn't even looking back. He was really leaving her. She felt a strange pain inside her chest. For years she had prayed for freedom. Now that she had it, it felt empty. Cold, lonely freedom. She ran a few steps forward and shouted, Wait. Marcus stopped and looked back. She took a deep breath. I don't have anywhere to go, she said quietly. I don't even have a name. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Then come with me, he said. We'll figure it out. The girl blinked. He said we, not you. Something about that word made her heart warm again. She walked beside him, still unsure but no longer alone. As they crossed the golden field, she whispered to herself, Maybe not all humans are monsters. Marcus didn't hear her, but the small smile on her face said enough. Cliffhanger. She thought she was free, but now she might find a reason to stay. The town was quiet, hidden between tall green trees and hills. Small houses made of silver stone stood beside clean paths. Birds sang in the trees and soft wind moved the grass like water. It was nothing like the loud, dirty market she came from. The girl walked beside Marcus, her steps small, careful. Her eyes moved everywhere, alert. Afraid something bad might happen again, but no one stared at her. No one shouted, no one pointed. They just smiled and continued walking. A small child waved at her. She froze, unsure what to do. Marcus gently said, You can wave back if you want. She lifted her hand slowly and waved. The child smiled wider and ran off to play. They reached a small round house at the edge of the town. It was simple but clean. Marcus opened the door, stepped aside and said, It's safe here. She didn't move, he didn't force her. Just waited. After a moment, she stepped inside. The air smelled like herbs and warm bread. There was a soft couch, a table with books, and a small bed near the window. She looked around like she had entered a dream. You can sleep there, Marcus said, pointing to the bed. She looked down and asked in a whisper, Even if I'm not yours? Marcus turned to her and said, You're not property. You're a person. Her chest hurt a little, not from fear, but from those strange, warm words. Later that evening, Marcus made food. He gave her a bowl of warm soup and some bread. She waited for a command. He said nothing, just ate his own meal. She picked up the spoon, her hands still unsure. It was the first time she ate without fear. Every bite felt like something new, something human. After the meal, Marcus sat on the floor and pulled out a small tool. He fixed a broken radio, humming softly. The girl watched him from the couch. Her eyes stayed on his hands. Strong but gentle, she asked suddenly, Why do you live alone? Marcus didn't look up. He said softly, Because I lost people. I needed quiet. The girl nodded slowly. She knew what that felt like. A few minutes passed, then she asked, "Why did you help me?" "I was just another slave." Marcus looked at her and said, "You weren't a slave. They just made you think that." She looked down at the floor, her voice shaking. "I don't even have a name, only a number." "Kabshira," Marcus stood up, walked to a small drawer, and pulled out an old notebook. He opened it and showed her pages filled with names, alien names. "Human names? Names matter," he said. "They mean you're real, not just a number." He looked at her and smiled gently. "Would you like to choose one?" She blinked in surprise. She had never been asked anything like that before. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. He handed her the notebook. She turned the pages slowly, reading names like Sora, Alith, Luma. Each one sounded like a song. She stopped at one, Ilara, she whispered it, and something inside her stirred. "Ilara," she said again, louder. Marcus smiled. "It suits you." She smiled back, the first real smile in years, Ilara. She was no longer 46 Beta. She had a name, a beginning. The next few days passed quietly. Marcus showed her how to use simple machines. He gave her clean clothes, let her read old books. He even brought a small plant and let her take care of it. It was her job, her choice. But one night, Ilara sat by the window. Holding the blanket close, she watched the stars and whispered, "What if someone comes to take me again?" Marcus stood nearby, leaning on the wall. He didn't lie. They might. There are still slavers out there. Ilara's heart sank. But then he said, "If they come, they'll have to go through me first." She looked at him. He didn't say it like a hero, he said it like a promise. That night, Ilara slept without fear for the first time in her life. She dreamed not of cages, not of pain, but of stars, light, and the sound of her own name, Cliffhanger. But peace is never perfect, far away. Someone still remembers her number. The sun rose slowly over the peaceful town. Soft golden light touched the trees and rooftops. Birds sang in the distance, and children laughed as they ran through the fields. Ilara stood by the small garden outside Marcus's home. Her hands were dirty with soil, but her heart felt light. She had planted 3 flowers, each one a different color, blue, yellow, and red. She didn't know their names, but Marcus told her they would bloom soon. He said, "Just like you." She didn't fully understand, but the words made her feel warm inside. Her hair was cleaner now, her skin healthier. She wore soft clothes and walked without looking over her shoulder. People in the town greeted her with kindness. Some even brought her little gifts, a fruit, a book, a scarf. No one asked her where she came from, they just accepted her. One day, Marcus gave her a wooden bracelet. He carved the word free on it in both human and alien language. Ilara stared at it for a long time, then tied it around her wrist. She whispered, "Thank you." Marcus smiled and said, "You earned it." But peace does not always last, and shadows do not forget. It happened on the 7th day. Ilara went to the town market with Marcus. They were picking fruit and laughing quietly about how Marcus couldn't cook. Then she saw him, a man with cold, sharp eyes and a deep scar down his neck. He wore a dark coat and stood near the edge of the market. Ilara's heart froze. She knew that face. His name was Captain Rovek, one of the slavers from her past. He had once thrown a child out of a cage for crying too loudly. He smiled when others screamed. Ilara grabbed Marcus's arm tightly, her body trembled. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked, his voice serious. She couldn't speak, she just pointed. But the man was already gone. Marcus didn't waste time. He pulled her close and said, "Let's go." They walked quickly through the streets back to the house. Marcus closed all windows and locked the doors. Ilara sat on the couch, her body shaking. "He was there," she whispered. "Rovek?" "He was there?" Marcus knelt in front of her. "Are you sure?" She nodded fast, her eyes wide with fear. "He knows my number," she said, holding her wrist. "He used to check it every day." Marcus stood and went to a hidden drawer. He pulled out a small weapon and checked the charge. Ilara stared at it, afraid. "Are we going to fight?" "Only if we must," Marcus said, "but we'll be ready." That night, Marcus stayed awake, sitting near the door. Ilara lay in bed. Holding the bracelet, sleep did not come. She kept hearing chains in her mind. In the middle of the night, a soft sound came from outside. Footsteps, then a click. The front door slowly creaked open. Marcus stood silently, weapon ready. Ilara peeked from her room. Heart pounding, a figure stepped into the house, tall, quiet, dangerous. Marcus didn't wait. He moved fast, grabbing the figure and slamming him against the wall. A low growl came from the man. "Rovek," Ilara screamed. "It's him!" Rovek fought back hard. Throwing punches, Marcus blocked them and hit back. They crashed into furniture, breaking a table. Ilara ran forward and grabbed a metal pan from the kitchen. She hit Rovek on the back, hard. He turned and slapped her across the face. She fell, but didn't let go of the pan. Marcus roared and pushed Rovek out the door. The two men rolled in the grass, fighting in the moonlight. Ilara crawled outside, blood on her lip. She picked up Marcus's weapon from the floor and aimed it. Her hands shook. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Rovek grabbed Marcus's neck, trying to choke him. Ilara shouted, "Let him go!" Rovek looked at her and laughed. "You'll always be a slave," he said. "No one will believe you belong here." Her hand stopped shaking. She pressed the trigger. A bright flash lit the night. The shot hit the ground near Rovek's head. He jumped back, surprised. Marcus used the moment to punch him hard in the face. Rovek fell, groaning. Marcus stood up and kicked away his weapon. "Stay down," he said. Ilara stood beside Marcus, still holding the weapon. Her eyes were full of fire. She wasn't shaking anymore. Marcus looked at her. "You were brave," he said. She nodded, breathing hard. "I'm tired of running," she said. "I want to fight back." They looked at the man on the ground. Marcus called the town guards. Rovek was arrested within minutes, taken away in chains. Ilara watched him go. This time, she wasn't the one in chains. She was standing, strong, free, cliffhanger. But now that she's fought back, will the rest of the slavers come looking for revenge? Ilara sat on the porch the next morning, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her lip was still bruised from the fight. But she didn't feel weak. She felt something new burning inside her, something she didn't understand. Marcus stepped out, holding 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her without speaking. She took it and whispered, "Thanks." They sat in silence, the soft wind moving the grass around them. "You did well last night," Marcus finally said. "You didn't freeze." Ilara looked at her hands. "I wanted to," she said, "but then I saw him hurting you and I couldn't just watch." Marcus nodded. "That's what courage is." Ilara, feeling fear, but standing anyway. She smiled softly at her name, still not used to how good it sounded. Not a number, not an object. Ilara, a person, but even with Rovek gone, her peace was broken. If one slaver found her, others could too. She wasn't safe. Not yet. "I want to learn to fight," she said suddenly. Marcus looked at her with calm eyes. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." So, he began training her. Not with heavy weapons or fancy moves, but simple things. How to block, how to move, how to stay standing, how to breathe, he said. You can't think clearly when fear controls your breath. They trained in the backyard each morning. At first, she stumbled, fell, and got tired quickly. But she kept getting up. The fire inside her wouldn't let her quit. Marcus never shouted, never pushed too hard. He was patient, always watching, always teaching. And when she made a mistake, he simply said, "Try again." After training, they would sit in the shade and drink water. Ilara often asked questions about his past. He never told her everything. But one day he said, "I lost someone I loved to slavers. That's why I hate them." Ilara looked at him with quiet understanding. She didn't need all the details. She knew the kind of pain that stayed in the bones. One night while reading an old book he gave her, she found a story. It was about a warrior who had been a slave too. The warrior had no family, no army, just a blade and a promise. To protect those who couldn't protect themselves, Ilara touched the bracelet on her wrist, the one that said free. She closed the book and whispered to herself, "I want to become like her." But slavers didn't wait. 3 days after Rovek's arrest, a message came from the town guard. A ship was seen circling the area. Its mark matched a known slave cartel. "They're searching for someone," the guard said. Marcus knew who. Ilara did too. That night, she stood in front of a mirror. She wore new boots, a training vest, and had tied her hair back. She still looked young, still looked soft. But her eyes had changed. Marcus walked in and said, "They'll come soon?" Ilara nodded. "I'm not hiding this time." They prepared traps around the house, simple alarms, smoke bombs, and escape paths. Marcus handed her a light weapon, not powerful but quick. She held it with steady hands. "They trained me to be silent, to obey, to fear," she said. "But you trained me to stand." He looked at her proudly. "I didn't give you courage, Ilara. It was always inside you." The next night, the slavers came. 2 ships landed in the forest, their engines loud in the dark. Masked men stepped out, carrying stun rods and nets. One of them shouted, "Return the property and we won't burn the town." Ilara stepped forward from the trees. She didn't run, she didn't beg. She raised her weapon and said loudly, "I'm not property. I have a name and I'm not afraid." The slavers laughed, until the traps went off. Smoke filled the air, lights flashed, alarms rang out. Marcus and the town guards moved fast, catching the attackers by surprise. Ilara moved like she had practiced. She dodged a net, kicked one man's leg, and used her weapon to shock another. Her heart pounded, but her hands didn't shake. In the chaos, one slaver ran at Marcus with a blade. Ilara didn't think. She moved. She jumped between them and pushed Marcus aside. The blade sliced her arm, but she stood strong. Then she kicked the attacker hard, knocking him down. Marcus grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a wall. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, breathing fast. "I'm okay." With the help of the guards, the rest of the slavers were captured or ran away. The town was safe again. The danger was over. For now, Ilara sat under a tree, her arm bandaged. She looked at the sky and whispered, "They'll keep coming." Marcus sat beside her. "Maybe, but next time they'll know you're not weak." She smiled through the pain. "I don't want to hide anymore, Marcus. I want to help others like me." He looked at her with deep respect. "That fire in you, it's real now, Ilara. Use it, but never lose your kindness." She nodded slowly. She was no longer the girl in the cage, no longer a number. Now, she was something more. Cliffhanger. Ilara has the strength to fight, but is she ready to lead others to freedom too? The sun rose gently over the hills. Its light golden and soft, birds sang from the tall trees, and the air smelled like clean earth and flowers. Ilara stood quietly at the edge of the village, looking toward the forest. The same forest where she had once feared being hunted. Now she stood tall, not hiding, not running, but watching. Her arm was still healing, wrapped in clean bandages, but the pain was nothing compared to the pride she felt inside. She had fought back. She had protected others. She was no longer a scared girl waiting for someone to save her. Behind her, the villagers gathered. Some were humans, others were aliens like her. Some had once been slaves too, now they stood free because of her. Marcus stood near the steps of the small meeting hall, his arms crossed, eyes watching Ilara with quiet respect. Today she had something to say, not just to the town, but to herself. She took a deep breath and walked to the center of the crowd. Everyone became silent. She looked at their faces. Full of hope and kindness, no one saw her as weak anymore. No one saw her as property. "My name," she said clearly, her voice calm but strong, "is Ilara." The wind moved gently, brushing her hair back like a soft hand. "I was born in a cage," and she continued. "I was given a number, not a name. I was taught to obey, to be silent, to be afraid." She looked down for a moment, her fingers touching the bracelet on her wrist, the one that said free. Then she looked back up. "But a stranger saw me, not as an object, but as a person. He gave me food, safety, and something I didn't even know I wanted. A choice." She turned slightly. Looking at Marcus, he didn't smile, but she could see the warmth in his eyes. Ilara continued. "He didn't name me. He let me choose, and today I choose to live as Ilara. Not as 46 Beta, not as a slave, but as someone who will help others rise too." A quiet cheer began. Small at first, then stronger. The villagers clapped, their voices soft but full of feeling. Some wiped their eyes. Others nodded deeply because they knew. They knew what it meant to choose your own name that day. The village council offered Elara something unexpected. A place among them, not just as a guest but as a guide for others who arrived. She accepted, heart full over the next weeks. More survivors arrived, scared, silent, broken, just like she had been. Elara welcomed them with open hands and soft eyes. She helped them heal. She trained them. She gave them choices, just like Marcus had done for her one night. She sat on the porch with Marcus. The stars above clear and bright, she said. Do you think one day slavers will be gone forever? Marcus took a long breath before replying. I don't know, he said, but I know they'll fear your name. She laughed gently, not the laughter of a child, but of someone who had survived. Good, she whispered. They should. He looked at her for a long moment. You're becoming something bigger, Elara. More than just free, you're becoming a voice. She looked at the sky. Her voice soft. Maybe that's what I was always meant to be. A few days later, she sent out messages across nearby systems, not warnings, but invitations. Come here if you've been hurt. Come here if you have nowhere to go. This is a safe place. A place where names are chosen, not forced. The message ended with her words. I am Elara, and I was once a slave, but now I stand free, and I will help you stand too. Across planets, across stars, her voice reached people who had forgotten how to hope. Some came right away, others just listened and cried. But all of them knew one thing. Elara was not just a girl with a name anymore. She was a symbol, the girl who was sold for torture, but found someone who gave her kindness. The girl who expected chains but got a blanket instead. The girl who learned to fight, not just for herself but for others too. And in a small village between the trees, every flower she had planted bloomed. Blue, yellow, and red, bright like her spirit. She watered them each morning, whispering to them, You're free too. She was once a number, then a name, then a light for others in the dark. She thought her story was about escape, but it became about becoming. She is Elara, and she sleeps no longer in fear, but stands tall, watched by stars.